Welcome. You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast hosted by Michelle Zellner and Sasha Berscheid. Michelle and Sasha are here to give you information and inspiration to help you live your healthiest, happiest lives. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings, Better Being. Thank you for joining into the Be a Better Being podcast. My name is Michelle Zellner, your host, and I am joined again by my amazing co-host, Sasha. Yay! How have you been, my dear?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Have you had a good week?
So far, so good. No complaints. Bravo has been keeping me very happy, very entertained. I don't know what I did to be so blessed to be a part of all these housewives' journeys. I'm great.
It's so great, isn't it? I know you and I are definitely going to dive into some content on that at future episodes, because it was one of those things that I'm always a little ashamed and embarrassed to say out loud to somebody that, yes, I watched the Real Housewives. And when I said it to you and you're like, oh my gosh, another thing we align on, I'm like, of course we do.
Of course we do.
Yes. Well, excellent. So I think it's good to give a little background information as we, hopefully get people to listen to our episodes. And health and well-being is obviously very important to both of us. Mm-hmm. And not only in how we live our own lives, but also in helping others be healthier and happier. So I actually don't even know a lot of your backstory because we are relatively new in each other's lives. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting just to kind of hear how people have come to that place. So was healthy lifestyle something you grew up with? Did you have like great modeling in your behaviors from parents or adults in your sphere? Or, how did you get to A, that being something important in your own lifestyle, and then B, wanting to share that passion to get people to embrace it as well?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for asking. For me, when I take a step back and I look at my life, obviously everything makes sense as to why I am where I am today. But the foundation that was laid for me as a child wasn't necessarily on like healthy eating, healthy lifestyle, things like that. I grew up in a home. My parents worked extremely hard to provide, and while letting me be youth and a child and run around, they figured out that I was really good at soccer. So from there, from the age of 3 until I got kicked out of college, soccer was my thing.
Whoa. Time out. Okay, that's probably a story for another episode, but we definitely need to circle back to that.
Yeah, the college one it's taken me a long time to talk about, like 12 years, but we'll definitely tap into the college soccer, getting kicked out, drunk phase of my life. But I would say the journey of health in itself was steered because of soccer, because I was constantly moving and constantly active and around other people who were also health conscious, maybe not myself so much health conscious, but it allowed me to emulate and to just see other people's perspective on life and how to be a moving being and how to be a healthy being and a hydrated being. I wouldn't say I really had much, and I don't think a lot of people do have a lot of guidance when it comes to nutrition. So growing up, I didn't have, hey, we don't need to be eating this sugary cereal or whatever. It was like, okay, it is nationally known that cereal is okay for breakfast. And it is nationally known that, enriched fortified foods are good for lunch and snack and dinner. And I don't blame anyone. I think that that's just, if you look at the old school food pyramid, that is what our parents were taught, to carb load, and that there isn't really so much excess, that you can eat all this stuff and your body's fueled off of the pastas and the refined foods. And so I don't necessarily blame anyone for like the nutrition I had growing up or even in college. But I do know that once I got sober, so that's the first thing, that's the biggest attribute to who I am today is my sobriety. And I will always give my higher power, which I call God, and sobriety like all of the reasons why I am and who I am today. But then additionally, once I did get sober, I got into a community of people who love to lift and to move their body. And that's really when I started to say, okay, how are you doing that? Why do you look like that? How come I'm lifting the same as you, but my muscles and my body doesn't react the same as yours? And so it really wasn't until I became really active in what is known as the CrossFit community when I started to really deep dive my nutrition and really pulling in all the pieces that I had learned in college and putting them all together. So I would say my personal combination is soccer. So that kept me moving, alive, and going, and committed to something bigger than myself and to a team. Sobriety, which has completely taken over my life, revamped my brand, who I am and what I stand for today. And then, that CrossFit community that helped me pull in my nutrition, then the icing on the cake of why I am the way I am, being intentional, being kind, caring, considerate, loving, compassionate, all of those things, and allowing myself grace is going to be my daughter. My daughter, Kyan, who, again, this is a whole nother topic, but Kyan is 3 years old now. She has level 3 autism, and it awakened me from this life of expectations of, hey, every day I'm going to paint my daughter's nails and braid her hair and gallop in the fields with her, to, all right, how do I get her to even communicate with me? How can I even get her channeled in with me? And how do other people do it? How do these single moms do it? How do these people that don't have the resources or perhaps don't have that fortitude or that, hey, I want to learn how to do this and figure it out on myself, like, how do other people do it? And what I found is that they don't. And that unless I'm really willing to take on that saddle and spearhead, and help be the change, no one's going to do it. So that's why I just said, I'm doing this. I want to find out all that it takes to fill in all the pieces and eventually become the best version of myself, which is what I strive to be even today.
Well, clearly we have so many episodes to talk about, right? So many things that you said, we could literally take on a whole other angle, and we will. That's why I invited you to be my co-host, honestly, because you have so many things that I know so many people are going to resonate with. But I want to come back to a couple of things. So were you one of those kids who could eat whatever she wanted because she burned it all off because of soccer? Was that kind of the mentality? Or did food issues like ever creep into your mind as a young
I wish I
child?
could. So I know my girlfriend Stacy won't care that I bring her up. There's a lot of people that I won't name drop, and that's out of like respect for themselves and their own being. But my girlfriend Stacy has always been one of those girls that has had a high metabolism, that has been able to go out and eat whatever she wants. And she's just very blessed, right, with that metabolism. I do believe that I was gifted that gift. However, at the age of 14, I want to say that I started with eating disorders, anything from anorexia, bulimia, or exercise induced issues. So yes, I've always been fortunate to be smaller in stature, right? I haven't always been healthy with maintaining my body. I also want to say that it was always a constant battle up until I got sober, with my healthy eating. I knew what I needed to do. I just didn't want to do it. And I wanted to take the fast and cheap way out.
Yeah, like so many people still today, right? And we're going to have so much to say on that later. Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing that information about your challenges with body image and eating disorders. And we'll talk about that for sure in other episodes. Definitely, I have my own story on that, and I'm sure we're going to get some great guests on to share experiences of their own as well. But I think it's an important message for parents, mm-hmm. coaches, mm-hmm. and adolescents and girls specifically, but boys too, you know, that it's not about weight and it's not about the way you look. Like a lot of these things get so intertwined. And I think when we now know properly and more about nutrition, that the focus should be on health, not what it does to your weight, but what it does to your health. And a lot of times, the eating disorders and all these things, they really don't have anything to do with food, right? They have something way bigger that we're trying to cover up or figure out or whatever. And it's often some degree of control, that we feel like we don't have control over things, but this I can control. So, you know, sadly, you are not unique in that experience. I'm not unique in that experience. It's incredibly prevalent, and I'm afraid it's getting even worse, probably.
I agree.
And I think probably a lot of that is because of social media.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we'll talk about all that for sure. So when you got kicked out of college, between that time and when you really got into the CrossFit community, like, were you still exercising, or did you just kind of give all that up? And
yeah, you'll love this. I have always been an avid body mover, always, always, always. But from the moment I got I can tell you the moment that I got kicked out of school, I will say I was right here on my alcoholism. So we'll put this right here so that you can see me. And then
so for those of you not watching it,
yeah,
she's
shoulder
height.
We're shoulder heights right now. We're shoulder heights with my alcoholism. By the time I had, so that was in 2009. So 5 years later in 2014, my alcoholism had leveled up to over my head. And this is really, it had just incline to the point where I was running marathons, 26 miles, 26.2 miles under the influence of alcohol, like having vodka in my water bottle, because otherwise I would be shaking. And I'm not talking like little trembles. I'm talking couldn't steady my hand. I was constantly vomiting, blood, bile, all these things, just because alcohol had just had such a grasp on me. No, I always move my body. I've never been terrible or lacking movement, but I was always terrible at fueling myself so that I could move my body and repair and reset my body even better.
You know, I know a lot of people who probably heard that are jaws on the floor. Like, how do you even do that? And it is astonishing how the body will adapt to what we do to it.
Whatever. Yeah.
And how it will adapt to what we force it to do. I actually have a good friend, Gary, who I am definitely going to have on this show, who has a exact same story, right there. Running marathons and ultra marathons, completely trashed and
inebriated,
fueled by alcohol. Yeah.
I remember one time, and I know my girlfriend Callie won't mind this story, like that I use her name. So all the names that I actually use are safe. You'll be able to tell when I put in or chime in a fake name, because they'll be like Sally, Gary, Harry, Jerry, Mary, all the names will rhyme. But I remember in 2013, her and I had signed up for a race in Nashville, Tennessee. It was a half marathon. And the night before, we were out drinking or whatever, a lot of tequila. We love tequila. And it was 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, and we were all standing. There's 3 of us that were running the race. We're all standing at the beginning, the start line. And the girls right next to it goes, "Oh my gosh, do you guys smell that? It smells like so much alcohol." And I was just laughing. Like, to me, I was just thinking, it's so funny that I'm so wasted and look at what I can do. And, you know, I was just like, I'm such a badass. Look at this. And never once did it come across like, number one, you have a serious problem. And number two, like, this is not normal and this is not healthy. This is not okay for your body to have to fight off, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think the next episode, we're going to dive deep into your journey to sobriety, because I think that's so important for the rest of the story, right? The other thing that I think I heard you say is that the reason that you are so inclined now to live that healthy lifestyle and to inspire others to do the same is because you want to show up to be the best you can for your daughter. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. So in February of 2020, we got kind of diagnosed with level 3 autism, global developmental delay. Those are all just like terms for whatever she needed to get for us just to be able to move forward with insurance to get her the resources that she needs. She goes to therapy 28 hours a week. And really in February is when I took a step back and I looked at myself, and I was at that time, maybe 5 months or 6 months postpartum. So I was hormonal, I was breastfeeding, I was sleepless, I had a toddler, I was just a hot mess. And I just looked at myself and I said, what were you doing before all of this that made you just you? Like, how did you do it? How did you wake up and like show up for life? And what were you doing, Sasha, to like essentially kick your own ass into gear? And I wrote it all down, and I said water, sleep, eating well. So my definition of like the food that's worked for me, practicing an attitude of gratitude, self-love, and either practicing meditation or prayer, and then movement. So I started to apply all that stuff every single day, making sure that I ticked off every single check mark. And then at the end of the day, you know, I asked myself, were my intentions pure? Was I kind? And did it cause any harm? And if all of those were, you know, the correct answers, then I would go to sleep. If not, then I would say, okay, we need to resolve whatever it was that you did to cause harm to whoever. And so honestly, people just started to really realize all of my internal work. And so that's really where I feel Kyan has just been such a blessing to myself, because she's made me wake up and made me become a better person. And then in turn has been helping me help others become a better person.
Well, I mean, it clearly takes even just a unique mindset to wake up and ask yourself that question in the first place. Honestly, I mean, we need more of that, which is what I hope we inspire people to do, right?
Absolutely.
Because so many people find themselves in a difficult situation, and no, I mean, not to blame anybody, but it's like, oh my gosh, I need a pill for energy. I need a pill to sleep. I need a pill to focus. I want a medication for this, right? Instead of looking at the basics, because ultimately that's all you did. We'll go back to basics. What does it take for a human, just a human specimen, in order to function properly?
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's what's so beautiful about it, right? Is it is very, very simple. Now it's hard to do in real life because modern society makes the other things easier, but it's very simple. And I think, you know, when I first learned about you and what you do with Sasha's 7-day challenge, which we're going to get into in a moment, when I saw all of that, I'm like, oh, she is me. This is not complicated, right? It's very simple. And I think for you and I, the mission is to help people get out of this idea that there's a quick fix and embrace the reality that you better decide that you're worth it. And you better decide that, or I shouldn't say you better, I hope you decide that you're worth it. And I hope you decide that you are worth the time and effort and energy to take care of, so that you can A, have a beautiful life, and B, take care of the other people that you probably love and are needing your care. So I know that Sasha's 7-day challenge is no longer officially around, but let's talk about that, because that's actually how you and I got connected. So I want people to know that backstory, because I think it's important.
Sure. So like I had mentioned, in February of 2020, when she got her diagnosis, and I knew that I could spiral into a really dark place. And I have been in that dark place before, where you have like suicidal ideation and all that stuff. And I just, when I had it in my past, I was in college, I was single, I didn't have dependents. And so for me, that I told myself that just isn't an option. Like, yes, I do believe that depression is real, and I know that it can be onset by chemicals. I fortunately am on a lifelong medicine where my chemicals just they don't work properly. They don't whatever in my head, but it just wasn't an option for me to go down that route. And so I literally took a selfie and I just started implementing every single day. By the end of July, so March, April, May, June, July, 5 months, I had a 6-pack, and everyone's like, I want that. I want that. How'd you do that? I want that. I want that. And I was like, okay, stop. This is super annoying, because I'm honestly eating 6 times a day, drinking a minimum of, the requirement is 64 ounces, but for me, it's 100 ounces. I sleep a minimum of 7 hours. I'm practicing self-love. I'm practicing an attitude of gratitude, and I move my body frequently, avidly, and always, always differently. I don't do the same thing day in and day out. I'm constantly adding variety, whether it's weightlifting, golfing, running, whatever that looks like, just to give my body a different spices. And what I came to realize is, I can do all these things, Michelle, and I can do them great. But what the next thing that I needed in my life to level up even more and to be able to help people, and this is something that I think a lot of people miss, and I'm not joking when I say this, is I realized I needed a mentor. And so because of Sasha's 7-day and leading all these people, right? So like helping these people hopefully and intentionally become their better selves, someone led me to you. And I honestly am just so thankful for having, we don't agree on everything. That is one thing that I want people to know. This is not something where you and I agree on everything. Because there's even things, I remember the first disagreement that we had was on mindset and mentality. Do you remember that?
I do. I didn't even know it was a disagreement.
Well, I just think it's funny because like the way maybe not disagreement, different perspective. Yeah. Is a better way of saying it. And then from there, it was like, this woman challenges me to look at things from a different point of view, a different perspective, allows me a safe place to push back, and also helps guide me. And I think that out of all of this, the space that I'm most grateful for is just having a mentor and telling people, hey, go get someone, even if you guys are not 100% in sync. Find someone that's going to make you level up. Find someone that you can be yourself with, authentically raw, and show up and be able to be passionate about whatever your true passion is.
I 100% support that. But I also want listeners to know that I feel like we're friends. So
for sure.
I know you see me as a mentor, but believe me, mentorship goes two ways. So the mentor gets as much out of it as the mentee, at least they should. And I know I have gotten as much out of this, believe me, as you do. So Sasha's 7-day challenge was born out of this wanting to, answer everybody's questions, have accountability, create a group to inspire them to make these changes. And it's something that actually a coaching client of mine, Kayla, and I know she won't mind being mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. All these name drops.
Right. She was introduced to your challenge and she was like, oh my gosh, you have got to meet this girl, Sasha. You don't do everything the same, but there's so much similarity. And I just think you would just both benefit from knowing each other. And, she's clearly right. So I am eternally grateful to Kayla for making that connection. And, Sasha's 7-day, I've been grateful to be able to experience it, actually do it. And then for you to be willing and open to letting me share some of my thoughts on some of the things and let me bring maybe a different level of information to the group. And I think it's been great. It's been great for me. I think it's been great for some of the participants. I know not everybody likes change, but it's run its course. And now as of 2022, it's no longer in practice officially, but the challenge is every day, right?
Every day.
And I think
every day.
I would say, because you and I have talked about this, and I've seen it in your post and your feedback to the group, that this isn't about a 7-day challenge. And that's what people should know. This isn't like, do something for 7 days and your life is different.
You're done. Right.
There were 16 weeks of 7-day challenges. And the whole goal and point was to get people to change their lifestyle habits.
You got it.
That's where you and I very much align, right? That there is no quick fix. There's no magic diet, no magic workout, no magic, if you just meditate for 5 minutes a day, your life's going to be amazing. It's the cumulative effect of all these things that you do and the things that you don't do that are going to impact your outcome, that are going to facilitate change, that are going to lead you to be a healthier, happier human, which I like to call a better being.
Amen.
So the challenge is every day. And I think people personally, if they looked at it that way and to do the best I can every day with what I have in front of me, what else can we do?
Exactly.
And you and I have talked a lot about the all or nothing mindset. And I know that was a big obstacle for me to overcome. And it's a big obstacle for almost every person I coach. And lots of people who have done the 7-day challenge. It's just a huge obstacle. It's a difficult one. And yet it can be overcome because you and I have both overcome it. So I know this for sure, right?
Yeah. And the thing that, I mean, you absolutely explained it. You hit the nail on the head. But the biggest intent, and I know this is for both what you stand for and what I stand for, is I'm not competing against you, Michelle. I'm competing against myself.
Right.
And I need to take a step back and ask myself, did I do a better job today at becoming a better being than I did yesterday? If the answer is yes, amazing. Kudos, high fives, the crowd goes wild. If no, then what I do? Let's analyze that. Let's take a step back and let's just focus on areas of improvement, but at the same time, celebrate the things that I did do well today.
Absolutely. And this is why I love you, because you think just like me on that.
I mean, I love it. And so, I mean, with that, I want to actually challenge you to also share with us, like, shoot, you're not this incredible person. I mean, you are, right? But you're not this incredible person because of a luxury life that you've lived, right? You have faced a lot of hardships. There have been trials, there's been tribulations. And at the end of the day, you also took a look at yourself and you said, all right, this is it. Let's become a better being. So why don't you share with us what your journey looked like?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I haven't faced a lot of hardships. I really haven't. If you look at my life, it's been a pretty idyllic life. It really has. I have 2 amazing parents who are still together as of this day at 55 years of marriage, and they actually still love each other and like each other. And we all have a really solid family relationship. Now, there certainly have been ups and downs and bumps and bruises along the way. But for the most part, I had a great upbringing. I really did. There's really not much to complain about. But as with everybody else, the way we go through situations in life and things that we do face, sometimes we maybe create a problem or we internalize something and then it becomes a problem. So for me, some of that developed because of my involvement in gymnastics. I was a gymnast starting at the age of 7. Actually, it turns out my neighbor, who we lived in rural Wisconsin, so out in the country, like everything's a 30-minute drive, nothing is close. So there's this little contingency of us who live out there. And my neighbor's mom decided that her and her daughter, or her sister, and myself and my sister should all do gymnastics. And so great. So we're going to go twice a week. It's like a 30-minute drive to this practice, and we're all going to do gymnastics, this 1-hour class a couple times a week, just because, kids should do sports, and wonderful. Well, I fell in love with it. I mean, I was the one that fell in love with everything about it. And I see this other group on the other side of the gym, and I'm like, what are those girls doing?
I want to do that.
I want to do what they're doing. And the head of this big program that I was involved in, I said that out loud to him, and he said, well, I don't know, they're really good. You have to try out to make that team. And I don't know if you can. And I was like, well, let me show you. And so I went home, and this was after, a few weeks or months of going to this kind of practice. And I told my mom about this group, and I said, I want to find out about it. So she found out about it, and, she knew that tryouts were going to be later on in the year. So in the meantime, I was going to continue on in this other group, and I was learning all kinds of things. And over the summer, I went to a camp, and my friend Jessica tells the story how she went to Florida to spend the summer with her grandma. And when she came home, I was doing backflips and back handsprings and all these things. And she was like, oh my God, how did that happen? So Jessica and her sister and my sister, everybody peeled away from gymnastics, but I had a grip on it, or it had a grip on me. So I tried out for that team, and I made it. I made the cut. One of the coaches didn't think I should have because I didn't have the talent. But the other coach said, oh no, this girl's got some heart. She wants to be here. So she's on it. So as an 8-year-old, when you hear that somebody didn't think you should be there, and as much as the other message was super positive, we tend to hang on to negative things, right?
Yeah.
So my little 8-year-old ears only heard, well, I don't think she should be here. And I didn't really know what that all meant at the time, other than, well, I'm going to prove him wrong. Right now, as I've gone on my own journey and learned to reflect on things, I know that that really affected me on a deeper level than I ever could have imagined. Those are stories for a later time. So now I'm in gymnastics. It's great. It's wonderful. I'm competing. That's a whole other story about my competition, and that's not a value of mine anyway. But I'm also a growing young girl, and now there's all these messages about food and your weight, and my coaches coached the college team as well in that town. So we actually worked out with the college girls, the 18 to 22-year-olds, as well as college guys in the gym. So, we would see young women, and I'm a 12 or 13-year-old, and I'm hearing the messages to them like, lose 2 pounds by tomorrow or don't come in the gym. And now I'm starting to be self-conscious, and then my body's changing. And then I'm with all my friends who are not in gymnastics, and they're all eating and doing whatever they want. And I'm like, well, I want to eat what they eat, because just like you, back then, just eat, right? Oh, eat green, eat waffles, eat cereal. This is good. Oh, you burn it all off. Eat whatever you want. Now, I did grow up with healthy cooked meals. We had a garden. We lived out in the middle of nowhere, and we had a giant garden. So we ate real food. And I was still, kind of in that age before fast food was the norm, and going out to eat is the norm, and convenience foods were the norm. So I still had mom packed healthy lunches. We ate breakfast before we went to school. We came home and had dinner. But with my gymnastics schedule, a lot of times I was eating dinner in the car on the way home, or I would get home and then have to eat dinner pretty late at night, which I now know is not great. So all of this mixed messaging and internal conflict, and watching my body change, and watching what my friends get to do and what I don't get to do, it really kind of messed up my brain as far as a healthy relationship with food. And so when I decided to quit gymnastics, I call it, I say I went on the middle finger to the world tour. And I wrote a note on my coach's car, and I told her I wasn't coming back. This is October 18th, 1989. I was 17 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday, literally. And I went to every Dairy Queen in town, and we had 3 of them. And I ordered the most giant Blizzard. I think they were like 24 ounces, huge peanut butter crunch with extra peanut butter. And I ate one on the way to the next, on the way to the next, on the way home. And I felt like I was free. I could do whatever I wanted. This is amazing. I get to eat what I want. I don't have to get on a scale for anybody. I don't get to leotard for anybody. I don't have to worry about landing on my head because I have a few extra pounds. I can do whatever I want. And so I proceeded to do whatever I wanted in terms of food. And as you can imagine, that led to some outcomes that weren't super awesome. So in about a little over a year and a half, I gained over 50 pounds. And I went from being this relatively small gymnast to this, what I will say, and this is me, I'm not judging anybody else, but this is me. I was a big fat white girl. Okay. That is what I had turned into be. And as much fun as it was getting to be that, and even that wasn't really that fun, because believe me, there's a lot of internal back and forth in the process. It definitely was not fun being that. So now I'm here like, oh my God, what have I done? I have dug myself into such a hole. I don't even know how to get out of this. Now, thankfully, I had never stopped exercising. Similar to you, even when I quit gymnastics, I always exercised. And to some degree, I used it as a form of punishment. If I ate that, I had to exercise it off, or as a form of, well, I worked so hard, so now I get to eat that. So there was just a very unhealthy dynamic with food and exercise, and my attitude and my mindset and my weight and all of it. So then I go off to college, and going to school in Hawaii had always been my plan. I first went there when I was, I think, 8, and literally felt like I was home, and it felt like, oh, this is where I belong. So first chance, of course, is in reality is to go in college. And here I was, like, finally getting to be where I wanted to be and live my best life, except I couldn't because of my weight and I had no confidence and I was ashamed. And yet I want to fit in. I want to be with everyone. I want to like live life and do college things. So what do? You live life and do college things. And so that's a lot of eating and drinking, which of course isn't going to help the weight. So I gained a little more. And of course, there's lots of commentary going back and forth and a lot of different dynamics. And I'll probably talk about those. I write about all of this in my book. So none of this is a secret anymore. But at some point, and I do wish I could rewind and like make note of when that really happened in my life. But when you're going through it, you don't think about that. But at some point I realized like, if I don't make changes, my future self, it is not looking so bright. And I meant like really serious changes. So unfortunately, that meant going down the diet road, because back in the day, that's what you did. We didn't know any better. And so now I'm going to go on a diet. And of course I would go on a diet. And what does that mean? Well, I'm not going to eat sugar. I'm not going to eat fat, mainly because back then fat was the devil. And if you eat fat, you'll get fat. And I was already fat and I didn't want to get fatter. So I can't eat fat. So I'll eat a whole bunch of Snackwell's cookies and fat-free peanut butter and Nutri-Grain cereal bars and pasta and white rice, because good job me, it's all fat-free. Unfortunately, of course, that didn't work. So I'm exercising a lot at this point. So I'm kind of losing some weight, and I had cut down on the going out and all of that, because let me tell you, it's really expensive to drink in Hawaii. Holy cow. Back then it was. So I was like, well, this isn't, I don't know if that's worth it. And certainly not helping my weight loss efforts. But still, it was frustrating because I felt like I was doing all the right things and nothing was working. And so then there's a lot more to the story, but then it really did require me kind of to re-educate myself and to actually get pretty serious about my own attitude about food, my relationship with food. And to change the mentality, to change the on a diet and off a diet mentality. And that mindset shift was ultimately what led me to long-term success and to really turning the corner. But it was also the education, because we don't get proper education on how to fuel a human body. We just don't. And culturally, and the way our societal constructs are set up, it's not even set up to be able to allow to fuel your body properly. So there are so many dynamics working against people. And to this day, it's one of the things I work really hard with people on, helping them figure out how to do it in the reality in which they live, because ultimately you still have to take that into account. But that is why I became so passionate about sharing the message, because I know there are solutions, and I know it's not just about willpower. And so many people feel like, oh, I just don't have the willpower, or I'm just too lazy, or I do all the right things and I'm not getting results. When in reality, the things that they're doing, while they feel like they're the right things, they actually aren't the right things, because they've never had the foundational knowledge of how to properly treat their human specimen that they're in charge of. So mine is, it's multifaceted, my approach. It is, I have to give people foundational knowledge of how a human body works. And then I have to help them come up with the strategies that are going to work for their specific human body and for their specific lifestyle. And I'm super passionate about it because I know a lot of people suffer unnecessarily. And I see our youth coming up, and I just did a radio interview last fall about the childhood obesity rates and how we're aware of it. Every September, it's National Childhood Obesity Awareness Month, and we're aware of it. Sure isn't getting any better. In fact, it's getting worse. And this is all due to lifestyle, all of it. It's due to our lifestyle choices, and it's heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking for anybody who is living a life that is less than what they want to be living. And I think, you and I align on that very much, because we've both been in some difficult situations with our own health and happiness. And we have figured out the pieces of the puzzle to make it work. And I do think it's an act of kindness to share those things. And in my own journey to be a better being, the kindness and the giving back has been a big piece of it. Because I think that's an element that is missing for a lot of people. And I mean, I'll say it's probably the element that came a little later in my own life than I would like to admit. But I know now, and for a long time now, that it's been a focus of it. And so, and talking about leveling up, I mean, even in the short time I've known you, it's inspired me to level up in that particular area as well. Because yes, we'll talk about some of those things later.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for, first of all, the compliment. That's huge. And I received that. The one thing that I heard a lot from your story that we have got to talk about, because even now, I'm guilty of it, but internalizing. And I even wrote it down while you were talking. I heard, because it happens to me all the time. And I need the message to get out there that and I had this conversation yesterday with a gal that I took to lunch, but internalizing is only setting me up for failure, because I'm causing scenarios in my head that aren't real. And I'm also, most of the time when you're internalizing, the narrative is not a positive one. So the context in your head that you're on repeat is very negative, right? And so if internalizing was a positive thing, we'd all be superheroes, but it's typically not.
Absolutely.
And from what it sounds like is, taking your narrative and instead of internalizing it and creating this focus on, okay, becoming a better being and sharing that information, it doesn't make you a lesser person. It actually does make you a better being by sharing those tips and secrets that worked for you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And to your point, the negative, that's totally normal. I think we'll do a whole episode on internalizing and in the negative narrative, because that's actually ingrained in our survival mechanism. It's totally normal, which is why we all do it, and which is why it is so hard to switch out of it. And so I know you and I both have gone on that journey, and we've been able to make that switch. We still do it though, right? We still have to continue to work at it. So I think we will do a whole episode on exactly what that process looks like, because I know for me, it's the game changer. Until you change that piece, very little else is going to change long term. Anything can be done for a short term, but we're talking about long term. That is what you and I are very passionate about making sure people understand there is no quick solution or quick fix to anything. And even in my own life, as soon as I embraced that reality, as much as I didn't want to, as much as I was mad about it, the sooner I accepted that reality, as soon as I accepted that reality, everything changed. So I think, as I know you and I could go on talking forever, but I think that's a good place to wrap it up. What do you think? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think this deserves a party horn.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. Michelle and Sasha hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you enjoyed the content, please help spread their message by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.